What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another new exciting episode of Homeboy Talk. I'm one of your co-hosts, Deon Donovan, creator of the Tales of Florida comic book series, and this is my co-host.
This is Daniel, Hybrid Rainbow Stinnette. You can catch me on Resetera video game forums. I currently don't have a Twitter or Facebook page yet, but we will be creating one and letting you guys know what that is in a future episode.
That's right. And it's me, ORRION Online. We're here back at it again for a Homeboy Talk, running some podcast topics for you guys, so guys, listen in.
All right, y'all. So we're about a month out from the Xbox Series SX release.
X gonna give it to you.
Right? Microsoft should definitely get DMX on the marketing campaign trail because they need all the help they can get for sure. So we're about a month out. Seems that I'll be honest with you guys, seems like it's a little bit flatline with the hype for the release of this. I know we talked about it a little bit previously. I know they just announced was that Halo remaster for release coming out.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be what it's probably like what it's gonna be upgraded or something like that, playing on the Series X or something like that.
Yeah, like graphical upgrades, and again, what another criticism of playing old games on a new console just with prettier graphics. But I just, let's get into a little bit of the specs, I guess, or speculation of what could turn around for the hype and the launch of the Series S and X. What you think, man? What do you think Microsoft got to do? What kind of money can they spend? Where could they invest to get this train going in the right direction? What do you think?
Well, I'm glad you asked because I can show you 7.5 billion reasons. No, really. Microsoft just got done spending $7.5 billion with the acquisition, buying out ZeniMax, the parent company of Bethesda, creator of all your favorite, Western RPG games such as Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, and many, many more. It's a lot of people looked at that as a power play, which, to be honest, it was a power play. Microsoft knows that when it comes to first-party games and whatnot, they've been on a tear lately, buying up, studios left and right here. Their first-party isn't on the same level as Sony or Nintendo, so they know that they have to really bring it coming into this next generation, especially now that they have Game Pass on the back burner that they're trying to build up as the Netflix of gaming. So it makes sense that they would have to go and want to buy a publisher that big to get those games and going from there. Now, the interesting point that's going to come from this, though, is we already know PlayStation 4 was the de facto console of this current generation that we're in right now.
No doubt.
So what happens when you take those people out of the equation and potentially put Bethesda games exclusive on the Series X or Series S? Phil Spencer just recently came out in an interview and he said, well, we don't need to make back $7.5 billion or we don't need to put the games on a PlayStation to make it work for us. And which is completely true. Microsoft is $1 trillion company. They can spend $7.5 billion in their sleep and not affect their bottom line. But at the end of the day, you're a business. Your goal is to make money. You're not, the shareholders and investors aren't sitting here watching you burn almost $8 billion in cash to buy games and not get some return from that.
Right.
So are they going to have to get some kind of return at this very moment? No, because Microsoft is going for the long game. But eventually, if you don't show some kind of return moving forward, people are going to start asking questions, and they're going to be like, well, was it really worth you spending that much money for these games? So, they coming into this next generation, they're definitely coming in a lot stronger than they were last generation, because last generation, around this time, we were already laughing about TV, and always online from Xbox One, and that was a hot mess. So, what do you think, Orrion?
Man, honestly, you hit the nail on the head with Xbox, especially with their business practice on it. Because, hey, I'm gonna say it from one podcaster that has said best: competition is good. You're damn right, it's good. Because Xbox gotta come with some dubs. Because if they don't, then they're gonna meet the demise of the past or it's gonna be the past generation. And they gotta capitalize. All these acquisitions and all this stuff that they're doing right now, it's hey, cool, kudos, bonus points to you guys and stuff like that. But you gotta make some moves. You gotta do something. We gotta get some exclusives. You guys gotta do something with all that power. There's no such thing as bragging about all that power, ain't doing shit with it. You know.
Well, I mean,
True.
they get the benefit of having, off the bat, they told everybody like, look, we're gonna have the most powerful console. Spec wise, they have the more powerful console. They came out and they said we're gonna have backwards compatibility out the ass. They got backwards compatibility out the ass. They got Game Pass. They got games from Xbox One. They got games all the way back from the OG Xbox that you can go back and play. They've already said that these games are backwards compatible. When you play them on the Series X, they're going to get the benefit of having that higher power from the specs to making games get better resolution, better frame rate, all that stuff like that. So Microsoft has definitely been doing a lot better, and competition is key, because there has been a few things that Sony has kind of slipped on a little bit that make you be like, what, really? You know what I mean? Like, for example, the whole, if you get an Xbox controller, hey, if the Xbox controller is from Xbox One, you can just bring it over to the Series X and it'll still work. You know what I mean? PlayStation, came back and was like, well, you maybe might be able to play the PlayStation 4 controller on a PS5, but you can't make the PS5 controller work on a PS4. Well, some people are like, okay, well then what if I don't have the money for the controllers like that? You know what I mean? So that's definitely a ball in Microsoft's court, showing that, they are a lot more forward thinking than they were in the past. Because in the past, they were just like, we're just going to bulldoze you with money and you're going to like it. And obviously for the last 20 years, that hasn't really worked. So, this coming generation, it's definitely going to be a lot more competitive than it has been. At least I think so.
Right. And it seems like Microsoft's doing the whole New York Yankees route with the salary cap, buying up players, and then, in a sense, buying up exclusives. If you can't make it, just buy them, right? Just buy them. Just do a whole Disney empire in the video game industry. Just buy up everything, right? So, it seems like Microsoft needs to do some heavy lifting, but it seems like also they'll have a better fight this gen than the previous one, because PS4 sales wasn't even through the roof. Yeah, it wasn't even comparable to Xbox, and then Nintendo's doing their own thing. They shouldn't even be in discussion. But yeah, so I mean, with that, what do you think is the best move Microsoft can do to essentially get a good head start on the game against Sony? What is the number one thing? If you were to go to Microsoft right now, you go run up to the Xbox CEO or whatever, and tell them one thing to get this next gen going good for them, what would you say?
See, because even though we just got done blasting them for spending all this money and everything else like that, that's really the best thing that they could do at this point. I mean, as sad as that sounds, it really is, because Microsoft has fuck you money. So they need to open up the war chest, and they already got Bethesda, that's Fallout, Elder Scrolls, that's Doom, that's Wolfenstein. So you already got that publisher. Honestly, I think if they really wanted to make a splash, they need to go after a Japanese publisher. Like, they need to go after maybe like a Sega or
Square Enix?
a Square Enix or a Capcom or one of them, and going from there.
Capcom.
That would be huge. The only problem with that, though, is one, if you're trying to acquire a publisher for a Japanese company, there's no problem with I guess an American company acquiring a Japanese company. That's not a problem. What the problem is, when you have a tech company like Microsoft coming in, there's a potential for the Japanese government maybe to step in and take a look at that and be like, okay, do we really want an American company coming in and owning one of the largest publishers of video games or possible other media like that? So that's one thing. Secondly, Capcom, Sega, Square Enix, all these other companies not only have relations with PlayStation and Xbox, but also Nintendo. Japan is a Nintendo stronghold right now. Like seriously, like the whole your princess is in another castle. Yeah, Japan is that castle. So there's no way that you're going to get these Japanese publishers to be like, well, if you give us $10 billion for your company, you got to stop making games for Nintendo. Well, they're going to be like, okay, well, bye. Because from what I've been seeing online, a lot of people have been saying, okay, well, Microsoft has all this money, they're just going to buy everybody. Well, I was like, well, if that was the case, then why haven't they bought up Take-Two with Rockstar with them? Why haven't they bought all these other, EA? Why haven't they bought Ubisoft? It's because it's not just about the money. It's about what's best for the company and the shareholders and the investors. If for ZeniMax and them, they basically got bored of the video game industry, and they're like, look, we made as much money as we wanted to. Give us 7.5 billion. We're out. You're not gonna be able to go to EA or them and be like, we're gonna give you 15 billion or whatever like that. We're out. They're gonna be like, okay, well, we can make that. Our projections are showing money-wise, we can make that in such and such time. So that's nothing to it. That's chump change.
Right.
So.
Well, to piggyback off of you guys, and I had to write down some more additional talking points. Let me go ahead and talk about some of the gripes that I've heard throughout the online community that's looking to purchase an Xbox Series X and S. One of the biggest things I've heard complaints about was the UI. The fact of the matter is, it's like it's coming in at 1080p, and it might have to be patched in for 4K resolution. Now, that's a big thing that I thought that I feel like Xbox should not stall. They need to come out swinging. You got to have a 4K UI. There's people that are talking about, like I said, well, I don't really give a fuck about the UI and stuff like that. I'm only going to be using it for a brief second just to get to my games. True, but at the same time, there's also people that use other apps on there because it's by default. It's going to have Netflix. It's going to have YouTube. It's going to have Hulu. Those are default apps that comes with these consoles and stuff like that. So, of course, some people are going to spend a lot of time on the UI. I know personally I spend a lot of time on UI because I do organize folders because my games come in digitally. So I have to spend time with the UI. And so that's one of the issues and the gripes. Another gripe is it's like, the system is coming in with no games exclusive, nothing swinging because the Halo's got to be pushed back. Personally, they should have cut this. They should have severed the ties with Xbox One and came out with Halo at its highest fidelity as much as possible. Give us the next gen console. I'm talking about, like, if you could show us Hellblade 2 at its greatest fidelity. That's what Halo needs to be at, that level. It needs to be at that level. Fuck, come on now. PlayStation 5, they got Ratchet & Clank. That looks like a damn Pixar movie. Impressive, So they cannot stall. If anything else, man, they need to combat against that, and that's the reason why that I feel like that. Personally, I really think that they should have Fable at launch. That would sell systems. Now, the acquisitions on stuff, congrats on them acquiring Bethesda, but there was also talks about acquiring Sega and WB Games. Sega, honestly, that little funny hints and stuff like that with the blue controller on the show like that. So, it's the same color as the Sega logo, or it's the same color as Sonic. Is this meaning that they're going to acquire Sega? Personally, I don't think they need to go that direction. Sega's not hurting for money. The Japanese arcade market is booming. They don't need it. They don't need Microsoft's help. Shit like that. Sega's doing it fine on their own. They've been around since 1970s, carrying it on their own. So, Sonic is their Mickey Mouse and stuff like that. Even, right? But WB Games, personally, I should have thought they would have bought it, because if you would have had exclusively with DC and having the Mortal Kombat in another realm, even if the NetherRealm is their own studio, it's still associated with NetherRealm. With WB. If Microsoft would have bought WB, I feel like they would have kicked a lot of ass, and there would be the exclusivity. Imagine a world where Batman, Robin, Batgirl, and the whole entire DC universe is only exclusive to Xbox.
See, but the whole problem with the WB acquisition, and that's the reason why because trust me, it wasn't just Microsoft that was looking at that too. There was rumors that Sony was also looking into it, and that there was other companies that were going into it. And
big dick money.
Well, the problem with the WB acquisition is that if you bought WB Games, that did not entitle you to the IPs that were under Warner Brothers. So that means Harry Potter, that means DC, that means the Lego games, that means all that stuff like that. If it had to do with anything that you had the license to get the IP for, that doesn't come with the WB acquisition. You get the studios, you get the staff, you get the talent, you don't get the IPs. WB would go back and be like, okay, well, now that you bought us, you still got to go through us if you want to license stuff. The only thing that you would get with the WB acquisition that would be yours, and even then, WB might play hardball with that too, would have been NetherRealm Studios and Mortal Kombat. But Mortal Kombat is a WB license. So once again, even if you bought NetherRealm Studios and brought them over, or for Injustice or Mortal Kombat, WB could turn around and be like, well, all right, you got to pay us to use license. So then, what's really the point of buying WB games if you're not getting the IP to go with it? Would it be sick to have, Insomniac, after they got done with Spider-Man, make a Superman game or Justice League game or something like that was actually good? That shit would be bomb. But WB's going to turn around and be like, all right, well, you got to pay us to license all these characters out for whatever on top of the money you just spent buying it from us. That's why nobody wanted to buy WB, because I think they valued themselves originally. They wanted $4 billion for WB games. Okay, $4 billion would have been nice if it came with all the IPs with it, but just for the studios and everything else like that, you ain't worth no $4 billion. That's why nobody wanted to buy them.
Right. It's not like Microsoft has a personal stake in Warner Brothers, unlike Sony, which has the movie license for Spider-Man and the licensing for that and the partnership with Marvel. That's a great relationship they already have right there. So you go from movie to console to movie licensing. Microsoft doesn't have that connection. They don't have the fight for that exclusivity like Sony does. So you're right. They could have purchased the studios, but they don't get the Lego. They don't get the Harry Potter, they don't get the Justice League and the DC titles exclusively, which would be a nice ass move if Microsoft could acquire all those IPs into their gaming. So the movie rights shit and the IP registrations and licensing, that's a big worm pool that no one really has a good groundhold in except for Sony. And maybe that will change as Disney keeps acquiring different Disney doesn't even have any kind of ground in any video gaming console.
Another stone to the Infinity Gauntlet.
Right?
There you go. Almighty Disney.
I mean, unless these companies are going to start making their own consoles, which that's not going to happen, I don't think you'll see IP exclusivity like that when it comes to big time IP like Marvel, DC, and Looney Tunes, whatever else is out there.
I mean, we'll have to see. It's just because, this acquisition by Microsoft getting Bethesda, honestly, it should scare people, because this is showing that the video game industry is finally moving towards consolidation, and you see it happen all the time in other companies. I mean, just look at cell phones. We just recently had Sprint and T-Mobile just merged. So now you have AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile now. We're going to see the same thing in the video game industry. Microsoft now has Bethesda. Honestly, Sony could possibly start acquiring things of their own. And eventually it's going to come down to where there's only going to be a certain few power players, the platform holders, holding these certain studios, and it's going to be, all right, well, who do you really want to go with? All those Facebook memes where it's like, if you take the red pill, you get, Nintendo, Dragon Ball Z, all these different things. If you take the blue pill, you get PlayStation. But well, guess what? That's actually getting ready to start happening. It's gonna be, do you want to play all these games on PlayStation? You gotta get PlayStation. You want to play all these games over here? You gotta get Xbox. You want to play these games right here? You gotta get Nintendo. So, honestly, it's a scary thought to see what's going to happen, because I feel like Microsoft has now opened Pandora's box buying Bethesda, because you're sitting here spending money from not a position of power. You're not the lead console. You're in third place behind Nintendo and PlayStation. Yeah, you got money, but there was rumors that when Sony was going around making these exclusive deals like they did for Avengers and Spider-Man and stuff like that, and different things going on, that the word was Microsoft was doing the same exact thing behind the scenes. But these studios were telling them, well, guess what? For the deal that we'll give PlayStation, you're going to pay about 2 or 3 times more to get that same deal. Microsoft ain't going to spend that kind of money when they... So now they're like, well, if we just buy the studio, we don't have to pay you that money now. So,
I mean, here's my thing. I'm going to sound like a damn Xbox fanboy. Fine, I'll accept it. I'll take it. You guys gonna call me? You guys gonna put? You guys? You know what? I can sit and defend Nintendo, and I can shit on Nintendo. I can defend Sony, and I can shit on Sony. So I'm gonna go ahead and shit on. Xbox, but I'm also gonna defend Xbox. Here's my thing. Microsoft got it's baby daddy. All right, they got the money. All right, they can acquire these said studios that was open for for acquisition, WB Games, stuff like that. Yes, I understand it. It's a struggle to get the rest of the IPs, to get the DC on board, to get Mortal Kombat on board and stuff like that. But they got big dick money, right? So if they want to, they're like, all right, well, let's run. All right, so I got the studio. What else do I need to do to go and acquire those IPs? Because I'm trying to make bank. This is the new console war right here. It's studio acquisitions, stuff like that. And this has been the most interesting business move I've ever seen in all generations and stuff like that. You know, fuck the damn bit roars and stuff like that. 16-bit, 32-bit, fuck that. No, this is studio acquisitions right now. And this is the most highly entertaining thing I've ever seen. And you're telling me that Xbox's focus is backwards games from Xbox from generations with Game Pass? Fucking what I'm talking about, like I said, well, you know what? We're still a beast at streaming. Fuck Stadia and fuck what's Amazon's new shit, Luna. All right, get off that fucking market. All right, because this makes no sense, stuff like that, you know. Because the fact of the matter is, it's like, all right, you're talking about like, all right, we're gonna have expandable storage with SSD and stuff like that, you know, so you can download all these old ass games you can play in 4K. You got to get off that. You got to get off that horse. You got to come. You got to get in that ring. Sony is in that. I mean, look at the WWE set, stuff like that. You know, if you guys familiar with WWE, cool. If not, I'll try to break it. I'll try to break it in. I remember when The Rock introduced the Xbox for the first time. Okay.
A throwback.
All right. The Rock, the Sony is The Rock now. It's the people's champion, you know. Xbox is the up and coming, you know, what has been known, but still trying to learn. It's trying to recover from being an underdog, from all those from generations on, stuff like that. They got to be the spotlight, and they need to play hardball, and that's the reason why I feel like that. You know, they need to play hardball with these acquisitions, because you know, if you got Microsoft that's willing to go ahead and unfold that wallet and said, what do you need to become successful in this department? And if studio acquisition is it, to drive numbers, to drive system sales, and stuff like that, you want to have as many of those boxes under people's TVs, because I'm telling you right now, man, PlayStation 4, they did a really good job. We're talking about 120 million units under people's TVs. And there's only, dare I say half, maybe a quarter of Xbox units and other people's TV, Xbox One, specifically Xbox One's units under people's TVs. Their goal is to make sure that there's plenty of the Series X under people's TVs, even the S, because I see what they're trying to do, man. They're trying to it's all about trying to get that hardware out there so you can go ahead and continue to rack up as much of Game Pass sales, Xbox Live sales, and even like exclusive game sales. Like they gotta play hardball, man, and that's the reason why I feel like that. If they're going to try to get these consoles onto people's TVs and stuff like that, they got to analyze what Sony is doing, because come on, man, like all this funny taking shots at, hey, this is how you turn a console on the side. What kind of bullshit?
You push it over to the side.
I was like, get that boy. If you wanna play fuck you on Sony and stuff like that, don't be turning consoles on the side. That makes no fucking sense. You got to come in and say, oh, okay, so you got Spider-Man? Cool, we got Batman. We got Superman. We got Aquaman. We got them. You know, we got Harry Potter. We got all of them. They got to compete. And if they could do that, fuck the Stadia, fuck the Luna, fuck all that stuff, that the streaming world, stuff like that. You want to solidify yourselves in the gaming world as Xbox as the number one console on the market, because as I've seen, they went to Japan, tried to introduce themselves. If you got Japanese people, you're telling me that it's sold out on the console sold out in Japan. Now, if I'm seeing the same demonstrations I seen when I was at the pre-order line for the Xbox, when you only had 3-in-1 at a GameStop store, of course you're gonna sell out. So no, let's put all the bullshit aside, stuff, man. You gotta play hardball, man. You gotta play American old sport. You know, you gotta go in.
Microsoft's whole point at this, and it's easy to see now because Phil Spencer has already come out and said it, is that their goal is to sell as many Game Pass subscriptions as possible. So they've already said, they're like, look, we don't have to. This is what they've said. we don't have to sell Series S. We don't have to sell Series X. We would like you to buy it, but we don't have to because we're going to put Game Pass on as many different platforms as possible. So no matter where you play it on, whether you're playing on console, whether you're playing on your phone, whether you're playing it on your PC, we're going to get the money from it somehow, some way. But the thing that I'm guessing Microsoft really is having a trouble understanding is that when you look at somebody like, say, Netflix, right? Netflix pioneered this shit so far. But when you look at what Netflix is doing, Netflix is just now hitting a point that they're starting to make profit from this. But basically, their whole business model is they're losing money from this constantly. And they're taking that money that they're making back and they're putting it back into the ecosystem to make these high-class TV shows like Stranger Things and everything else like that. So it's like, okay, you can sit there and pump all this money into Game Pass and whatnot, but if you're not getting the money back from it, it don't matter if you're giving people free games and whatnot. Like, nobody cares, you know? Like, and then you're over here giving subscriptions for $1 and all this. Like I understand you're trying to get people into the ecosystem. That's the point, to get them into the ecosystem and hold them there. But if you don't have the compelling software to keep people there, then nobody's gonna want to stay there. You know, like I was looking online. Somebody made like a good analogy. They're like, when you go on Netflix, right? You know, off the bat, Netflix, there's thousands of movies and TV shows and everything on Netflix, right? But real talk, there's only maybe like 5% of that thousands of TV shows and movies and whatnot are actually like high budget stuff that you would actually want to watch. The rest is like B and C movie trash. Right. Stuff that you would watch if your homegirl came on and y'all wanted to chill and y'all just want to throw on and for background noise. That's the stuff you're looking at. That's basically what Game Pass is. Like, of the around 100 games at a time that you'll have in Game Pass, maybe like 10, 15 of those games are actually good games that you might want to play, but the rest is this you know, I don't say it's trash because, you know, but they're not like high budget games. They're like AA games. So if you don't have that software that's being pumped in to get people to play, then nobody's going to want to stay there, which is why I've seen us all of them buy Bethesda, because now they're realizing, okay, we got to have some first party stuff to throw against Sony and whatnot, because they're eating our lunch when it comes to games. So is it going to work? I don't know. We'll see what happens. I feel like with the acquisition from Bethesda, Sony's going to come back and they're going to start getting studios left too. I've heard rumor-wise that there's a reason why Sony and Square Enix have been talking pretty closely. There's a reason why Final Fantasy 16 is exclusive on PlayStation 5 and not on Xbox. If I had to put my feelers out there, my antenna, and say who I think is about to be acquired next, I think Sony's going to acquire Square Enix. They've had a really good relationship for a while. A lot of people don't know this, but after the box office flop, Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, Square Enix was in some bad straits, or, you know, back when it was still Squaresoft. They were in bad straits. They were on the verge of bankruptcy, and pretty much Sony had to come in and be like, "Look, here's some money to help us. You know, we'll scratch your back now. Just make sure to hook us up later on when we need you." And they've had a great relationship since. And look, whenever a new Final Fantasy comes out, who's the main console that Final Fantasy is selling on?
Exactly.
PlayStation. So you got all this stuff going for you. Honestly, if Sony could get Square Enix, that's an automatic counter hit to Microsoft, because now you take one of the biggest RPG, you know, companies off the table. Hey man, sky's the limit.
Well, that turns into JRPG versus Western RPG.
There you go.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, but I'm gonna take my chances with Final Fantasy and all these other, you know, titles that Square Enix has over buggy ass Fallout and the Elder Scrolls. You know, I mean, you know, Todd Howard over here is still selling the same Skyrim game from 25 years ago. we're gonna be on the PlayStation 8 and the Xbox Infinity. Skyrim 5 updated again. More dragons. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, to wrap things up, and I'm glad you brought that up, man. Whereas Deon, when you said JRPG versus Western RPG, Personally, that's how I actually configure my systems. Is Xbox is a Western system. I only play American games on that system, and I play all my Japanese games on the PlayStation. I mean, not a lot of people say sometimes people can only afford one box, so they can play everything on one box, you know. But like that's how I configure my systems, and Nintendo's kind of like a free for all thing, whatever it feels great, portable, you know. But other than that, man, like Xbox, all I'm asking for you guys is to step up, you know, and play hardball, man, because you guys are capable of doing it with the shots y'all taking on Twitter. So if you guys could take shots on Twitter, you guys and act like Wendy, you know, like Wendy's and Dunkin' Donuts taking shots at each other. You guys could do the same thing when it comes to studio acquisition, because now we just entered a new virtual monopoly. But other than that, man, that's my ending discussion on Xbox. You guys want to end things off on that? All right, there you have it. We out.
And with that ends our discussion, folks. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment if you're feeling the content. And with that, we're out.
Orrion Online, offline.